Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Beauty of this journey, of a sobriety journey or any unhealthy coping mechanism, is like, what do you actually need in that moment, and how can you find it in Jesus? Because he's there all the time to give us those things.
Hey friend, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Julie Lyles Carr, and this is the AllMomDoes podcast, part of the Purposely Podcast Network. We are rolling deep into season 9, which is just wild for me to think about. And one of the true delights that I have in hosting this show is when I get to have people back on who've made such an impact in their initial interview we got to do with them, where it's generated so much conversation, people really having some heartfelt thoughts, reconsidering some important aspects of their lives. So when I saw that Christy Osborne was available to come back on the show, you best believe I jumped in and said, absolutely. You will remember her from a previous episode where we dug into all things mommy wine culture and what it means to consider sobriety and all kinds of stuff. She's back today, and I am so delighted. Christy, thank you so much for joining me back on the show.
I just so appreciate you. Thank you for having me. And oh my gosh, 9 seasons. You are just, that is incredible. And well done you for just like keeping going and running your race and doing it well and bringing the brightest light. So I appreciate you as well.
Oh, thank you. It's kind of wild. My producer and I laugh because when we started out, she had like tiny little children, and I had a bunch of children still living in my house, and life is shifting and changing, and hers are heading, one's heading into high school. I'm like, wait, no, what? Yeah. It can't have been that long, but yeah, it has. So, well, Christy, tell the listener, if they aren't familiar with you yet, or if they don't remember that previous episode, tell the listener where you live, where you're dialing in from, why you have the cutest wallpaper in the whole wide world behind you, and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Christy. So the cute wallpaper is located in Sussex in the United Kingdom, but I obviously am not British. I am from Los Angeles, California, California girl at heart, but I've been living in the UK now for almost 2 decades, which is wild. I moved over here after law school. My husband got a job. We said it was going to be a 2-year adventure. And then here we are. Here you are. So many years later. But I basically did a bunch of random things. I worked in business development and PR and in Parliament, actually. And I wound up 2 years after my mom passed away in March 2018, really struggling with my relationship with alcohol and really knowing that I felt this nudge from the Holy Spirit. And it was actually, more of like a shaking than a nudge of this thing has to be put down because you're not living up to the woman that I want you to be and the mother I want you to be. And I knew that the first domino that had to go in my life to start living up to that calling from Jesus was alcohol. And so I had this actual come to Jesus moment in the mirror on that day where I just said, it's enough. Like, Jesus, help me. It's enough. And now I'm here.
Yeah.
It'll be almost 6 years alcohol free, 5 years, I think, coaching gals to freedom, and got the opportunity to write my book, which is a 40-day fast. And it's just absolutely wild what God is doing. It is absolutely wild. I am so blessed, and it is the coolest job in the whole world.
That's amazing. And you and I got to talk before we hit record. I just said, when you were on last time, it was at what I would consider sort of the beginning of the sober curious wave. And I want Rebecca to go back and link that previous episode so the listener can go back and take a listen there, because one of the things that I shared with you at that time is, having been in women's ministry for a long time at that point, and then having recently just come out of that, I was telling you, I started to get really concerned just how many times with moms, when women were gathering, that we were sort of celebrating the alcohol nature of that it wasn't just a feature or something off to the side. It was sort of the main event. And how, while I never wanted to default into a legalistic view of alcohol consumption, because I've seen that be damaging as well, just how prevalent that was becoming. I'd love for you to catch me up from that point, when you began on this journey, both your interpersonal, but then also as you began to realize, wow, I have a message God's given me. I need to start talking out loud about these things and asking women to consider this. Catch me up to today, what you feel like you've seen in terms of that sober curious trend growing. Just how have people become more receptive to your message? Have you felt more pushback? What are you seeing specific to women? What are you seeing? Catch me up to today, 2026.
Yeah. So it's funny because I think if we talk about society, we've gone one way, and I feel like the church, and not to, badmouth the church in any respect, but I feel like the church is very much hasn't made as much momentum as society has, right? Like we see Gen Z, they say Gen Z over here, but the younger generations are drinking so much less. I have a theory that is because a lot of the reasons that we drink for connection or entertainment, they're holding on their phones. But that's another conversation. But the
other addiction cycle, yeah.
The younger generation is drinking a lot less. We have so much more medical information and scientific information about what alcohol does to our brains and our bodies. And we have had until recently the U.S. government saying, no alcohol is the best amount if you are looking at like measuring it. And so we have seen it kind of this swing in the other direction where alcohol sales are literally at an all-time low. You can find a mocktail menu pretty much, if you're in a bigger city, anywhere you go. We have come so far. It seems like every celebrity has a non-alcoholic brand now. But the thing is, and the reason that we have to keep having these conversations is it doesn't feel like women can still say in church that this is something that they want to look at or are struggling with that. And the reason I know that to be true is because I was on Focus on the Family. We recorded it last year, but the actual drop came out at the beginning of this year, 2026, and the book sold out on Amazon. And it did not do that.
Wow.
It didn't do that because of me. It didn't do that because I love it. And I researched it, and it's a great book, but that was because women were hearing that for the first time. And I was the first woman to go on Focus on the Family, if you can believe that, and talk about alcohol. They had men, but not women. But I think and then I had this huge influx, over 500 gals right into the community to do a January fast with me. And they all say the same thing. I can't talk about this in church. I can't talk about this in my small group. This is the first place I can talk about openly about my faith, but also that I'm struggling with wine every night. And so it's funny because society seems to be doing a better job. And listen, obviously I can't generalize the entire, church all over both countries we live in, but that's just kind of what I've seen. There's still work for us to do, for sure.
Right. One thing that I hear people grapple with, and I get some of the confusion that comes with this, because for myself, in terms of health journey, I have a parent who passed away from Alzheimer's dementia. Like there are a lot of medical things that for me, I've gone, man, it just, there's a cost ratio here, even if it's something that is kept in check and it's not dominating the life and on and on and on for the same reason that I'm not going to be a smoker. Those would be the same health reasons that I would stop the alcohol. And yet I hear people give pushback like, well, no. Like, yeah, like you shouldn't do too much, but there's competing information and there's this and there's that. And I hear that confusion. And I know it's easy to brush off as no, somebody's trying to create a justification, but I do think that we get a lot of things that do feel like they're saying the exact opposite of each other. So since you have such a window into this, since this is something that you look at so analytically and you're studying all the time, where are we at in this, Christy? Like, what do we really understand about alcohol and our health, our brain health, our hormonal health? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of stuff as someone who's walking the perimenopause journey, stuff coming out where it's like, don't touch this stuff because of what it does hormonally. But then I think, well, that's true for a perimenopausal woman. Wouldn't it be true for a woman who is in the throes of just having those regular cycles and pregnancies and all that kind of stuff? So what are you seeing? Like, clear up some of the confusion for us.
Yeah. It's funny because of course there's competing information, because a lot of the positive information, and this is like stuff that we grew up with, like, red wine is good for your heart. That stuff is like been completely debunked. But a lot of the positive things that you find out there promoting alcohol, especially if it's like somehow tied to health, if you dig deep, it's usually tied to a big alcohol conglomerate or brand or something like that, which is why it is really, really confusing. interesting. But science, what we know to be true is that it is a class 1 carcinogen, meaning the same as tobacco, same as asbestos. Like it is just like if it, as bad, it kills, under what smoking does, but it's the second biggest killer of people, in this kind of like area. And it's directly related to so many things outside of like health, like domestic violence and DUIs and all that stuff. So there's that all in one category. Dr. Lee Warren, who's a neurosurgeon, just came out with a book actually today called The Life-Changing Art of Self-Brain Surgery. And in this book, he's a neurosurgeon. He's a Christian. He talks about taking your thoughts captive. And he writes in his book that they are not allowed to have alcohol when they are doing brain surgery because it literally kills neurons like in your brain. So alcohol cannot be present in the operating room because it's so bad for your brain. They don't want it anywhere near. So we have so much information about what it does, as you said, to gut health, hormones. I mean, it is awful for estrogen, right? And you can ask any perimenopausal woman how they feel after drinking, and they can tell you how they feel.
Yeah.
But we have, as you said, competing information. I hear a lot of, well, the blue zones, the people in Europe, they have it just with dinner and everything like that. But the rate of alcohol use disorder deaths in Europe is just as high, if not higher than the US. And so it's all like data that you have to look at skewed. The other really interesting thing I thought, which is not necessarily related to health, but it's related to harm, is I interviewed a Penn State professor who's been looking at this data for 40 years. And he wants to help basically go downstream and, help people before that they get hooked. And so he said, what can we do at the very beginning to help harm not come to people? That was literally his thing. How do I help people not come to harm? And his whole hypothesis, 40 years of study, is the sooner that you start drinking, the more harm that is going to come to you in your life, in your adolescence and your university life and so forth, just because of all the things that can happen while where alcohol is involved. And so we just know so much more. And if you see an article that's, saying red wine's good for your heart or something like that, like do your research, because a lot of that stuff has been debunked. And also, when I see those studies, there was just a really big doctor who has millions of followers on Instagram, a woman who I really respected. And she said something the other day of, oh yeah, all this competing information, similar to your question. But I think, 2 to 3 glasses of wine a week is fine, but it completely disregards that alcohol is highly addictive, right? So if you have 2 glasses and you're a regular wine drinker, I mean, are you going to stop at the third? I wasn't.
Probably not. Yeah.
So I just threw a ton at you. As you can tell, I love talking about
No, I really appreciate it. And, one of the studies that I've looked at, Christy, that I've had people say, well, but, there's that study about because it can be this social lubricant. Yeah. And we are created to want community and to want friends, and it makes you more comfortable in social settings, and it just makes the conversation flow and on. And that's, that combination is really good for your health because it facilitates community. I get the argument, but as somebody who really is an ambivert, I mean, I am married to the extrovert of the extrovert of the extroverts. And while I can go for myself, turn it on in a social situation, I'm going to have to recharge at home. Yeah. But there's something to be said but can't we just have the social engagement and work on ourselves, know ourselves well enough to say, okay, maybe my tendency is to retreat or to be a little nervous in social settings, but that's an opportunity for me to also determine what works for me and determine, hey, I do better going to the gathering for an hour. Yeah. I get the benefit of going for an hour and then cutting out and coming and recharging. I'm not having to override the way that God designed me with a substance in order to hang in there, in order to get the community, in order to get the benefit of community. I mean, that's one of those things that I see we've sort of swirled it all together. Yeah. But we're still missing maybe what we need to be working on internally or pushing through some
Right.
feelings of discomfort or awkwardness in a social situation.
Right.
What are some things that you advise people that you coach and who come to you to talk to you where alcohol has played that role? Hey, it makes me more social. It makes me more at ease in situations where I'm nervous. How do you coach them through that? To not be dependent on that is the thing that helps them make those connections, do the networking, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's really going on there, right, is that it's shutting off your prefrontal cortex. So it's not allowing you to make good decisions. It's making you a little bit numb and a little bit loose. And is that how you want to have to show up, right? And this is the thing. And this is coming from the girl that literally never in a million years thought I could do a dinner party or a wedding or anything like that without alcohol. There was like literally, I never thought it would be possible. And so what I do with my coaching clients and the gals in our community is it's practice, right? The first time feels really weird because your subconscious filing cabinet doesn't have any data to support that this is something that you can do because you maybe haven't done it in a while, right? And so it takes practice. As you brought up, like boundaries, right? If you feel like this is going to be maybe a little bit trickier for you, go for an hour. Figure out ahead of time what you're going to drink. Have an exit plan. Like, no, I used to look at my husband across the dinner table and say, like, the babysitter texted.
Yeah.
And that meant that it was like,
that was code for
honey, get the check.
Chalked up. Yeah.
But like, ultimately, we want to show up. And this is one of the gifts, the beautiful gifts of this is that when you get to then step into like who you truly authentically are, you get that first like laugh or tell that first joke or engage in that first conversation without alcohol. I will never forget it when it was me. And I was like, oh, like, and they call it over here chat. Like I've got chat, like in the UK.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, I've got chat. Like I'm not funny.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can do this. And then you just have talk about connection. I mean, the connections are so much deeper when you're showing up as your true, authentic self as God, made you to be. It's a different level of connection. And it's one of those things, again, going back to practice, that just takes a little bit of time to learn. But when you get there, it is so much better than socializing with alcohol. I mean, you're not doing the small talk thing, right? You're not just trying to get by. You're truly, truly speaking with someone and connecting with them. When two kind of especially Christian sober gals, I feel like get in a room, like we also go quite deep fast, and it's so great.
Right. A deeper thing. Tell me about the trend that I see a lot of people using as they are working to break some of their dependence to alcohol, or for health reasons, they're trying to say, hey, I'm great in a social setting. I can use it or not use it, but I'm just trying to, make some health advantages and that kind of thing. But I'm seeing the rise of what are called nootropics or things like that, different herbal agents and things of that nature that, hey, it's going to relax you or give you kind of that buzzy, giggly feeling without the alcohol. What are you seeing in that? What are your feelings about that? Where concerns, where advantages? Just kind of give me the 411 on that whole situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very, very different because a lot of this is THC related, right? And so I'm in the UK where that's still illegal. So there's CBD and things like that. But there's a lot more in the US. So I'll just speak kind of to that audience. I think that when you're using anything outside of yourself to alter the way that your brain works, that you have to ask yourself the question of why. Why do you need that? And is there a better way? And usually Jesus can give us that thing, whether it's comfort, relaxation, connection, whatever it is. Why bypass him, right? By adding a drug, legal or illegal, whatever it is. Because what we can get in Jesus is it's a different level of comfort and rest. And so I don't use any of that stuff, but I'm not necessarily gals in my community will post about different drinks and things like that. And in the beginning stages as well, I kind of have the view of same as mocktails and sugar of kind of depending on what it is, right? Depending on what it is, but give yourself grace. Alcohol is so addictive. And so if a CBD drink, helps you and it's not a high level, it's so dependent on the percentage as well. But again, but why? Like, what do you need in that moment? And like, why do you need something to help you get there that isn't Jesus, right? The beauty of this journey, of a sobriety journey, or any like unhooking from any unhealthy coping mechanism, is like, what do you actually need in that moment? And how can you find it in Jesus? Because he's there all the time to give us those things.
You think that you are in the final round of getting all this parenting done. You've got kids who are in high school, you're starting to think about college, and you're thinking, this is it. I'm Julie Lyles Carr. I'm a podcaster and I'm a mom of 8. And here's what I want you to know about George Fox University. It's a different way of doing college. Why? Because yes, it's all about getting a fantastic degree to set your kid up for their future. They have 60 undergrad programs available at George Fox University. But that's not where the story ends. It's also about equipping them spiritually. If you get out of college with a degree, but you don't have a closer relationship with God, that obviously is going to deeply impact what your young adult life looks like. So for your kiddos, I want you to consider, what would it mean for your child to be able to go to George Fox University, where 93% of George Fox students say they now have a closer relationship with Jesus? George Fox University is located in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. They have 23 Division III athletic programs, and 100% of students at George Fox University receive financial aid. George Fox University is dedicated to their promise. They want every student to be known for who God created them to be. So listen, parents, yeah, you are getting into some of those final laps, but you definitely want to make these last laps count in a big way when it comes to the legacy of your parenting. So be sure and check out for your student, georgefox.edu. That's georgefox.edu. What do you think is the relationship between alcohol and avoidance? And what I mean by that is sometimes we think of it as a social lubricant, or it helps relax me, or those kinds of things. But I see that there could be a pretty strong correlation between alcohol and avoidance. What do you see? Does that resonate with you, or is that you're like, What are you talking about, Jules?
No. When you just said that, I was thinking back to our very first fast call for this last January fast, and when I asked, what do you think? Why do you think you like to drink right now? And we took the notes of the gals writing in the chat, and one of the ones that I saw come up, which I came up like with multiple women saying it, which I hadn't seen before, was both anger and conflict. And I was like, that's really interesting. I usually see anxiety and boredom, which there was that too, and rest and connection. But I was like, wow, conflict and anger. Wow. And so then it becomes, okay, so if you're avoiding those things and drinking to kind of check out, then we talk about like, how is that actually helping the thing that you want to avoid, right? How are you helping? Or are you just adding a hangover on top of it the next day, decreased ability to use your brain correctly, and you're exhausted? And, so it then piles on. And because of the way that alcohol works, the spiked adrenaline and cortisol stays in our system. And so you're making that conflict or whatever you want to avoid harder on yourself. And it doesn't feel like that, because it feels like you have this thing that can allow you to check out for this period of time. But if you really boil it down and look at how temporary that is, it just shows you that like it's really, really like a cost benefit analysis, and it's not worth it, right? It's not worth it. And again, like going back to what we just talked about, like how can Jesus help you through that as opposed to having to avoid it, like what does he want you to learn in that pit?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the correlation between cortisol and alcohol, because I think a lot of people don't realize this. They find alcohol, the use of it, to be relaxing, not realizing metabolically what it's doing. So talk to me about that correlation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I was sitting at a lunch with like 6 girls for someone's birthday lunch, and everyone except for me was having champagne, and they were all talking about some sea salt. I don't remember where it was from, but they were spending a fortune to have it shipped to them to lower cortisol. And I just like sat there. I'm like, I'm just not going to say anything.
I'm
just not going to say anything. No, but it spikes your adrenaline and your cortisol. And so it makes you stressed out. It's why the way that it actually works in your body, it's normally why you get that rush of it at 3 a.m. and you wake up and you're like, oh, what is going on? It's because the downer effect of the alcohol, the dynorphin is down and the cortisol is up. And so that's when you start getting those racing thoughts, racing heart in the middle of the night. But the thing that I didn't realize is that stays elevated, and the science is mixed on this, but it's about 7 to 10 days. So I always say, like, if you have a couple glasses of wine at book club on a Tuesday and you're extra shouty with your husband or your teenager on a Friday, like you're not setting yourself up for success because you still have that alcohol in your system. And this is one of those things where you can read the science about it, which is so fascinating. But when you experience it, like, it's like, oh, my boss is actually not that annoying, or like that project wasn't that hard, or my kid's actually not that, it's like you just feel so much more calm. I have had gals go off anxiety medication because they stopped drinking. Just the peace and the calm that is possible when there's no alcohol in your system. It's something to, like, if you haven't felt it, it's definitely something to try because it's pretty great.
Yeah. Talk to me about alcohol removed or non-alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic wine. What do we know about those products? Do you generally feel they're safe to use? What's your position on that?
Yeah, there are different varying alcohol like levels. So normally anything under 0.5 is considered completely non-alcoholic. I have gals that love a non-alcoholic beer or non-alcoholic wine and use that as a substitute. And then what happens with a lot of gals that I've coached before is they realize they don't actually need that thing at the end of the day. But I think it can be a really good transition when you're at the beginning stages and trying to walk away from alcohol, because it helps in that kind of witching hour moment of like the normal habitual thing of pouring the glass. I think it's also really helpful in social settings to be able to have something to hold, a glass to hold, something to look similar. Now, I will say that there's a percentage of gals who and not a huge amount, I haven't heard it personally a lot, but who do find it triggering and don't want to have that as an option. And so it's one of those things where you just have to kind of experiment with it. But I got to the point where I was like, actually, non-alcoholic wine does not taste good to me. I would have like a non-alcoholic Corona, like in the summer at the beach every once in a while, but it's completely based on kind of individual one-on-one preference.
Right. That's so interesting. You've mentioned a couple of times the coaching group, the community that you've built as part of this mission that you did not expect to be on back a few years ago. Tell me about the power of processing all of this through community as opposed to people who take this journey on their own or are doing it, in some kind of different way. What is the beauty of women coming together in this way and discussing the challenges they're having, giving support, that kind of thing? What have you found?
I did not think that there were I didn't know any other women that didn't drink, much less any like Christian women that didn't drink or wanted to look at their alcohol when I started this. And so I really wanted to create a safe space for gals to be able to have this conversation. And it does not have to be in my community, but a community is so important. Some gals go to their local AA group and find their people, and that is amazing. And some gals don't, right? And some gals want more of the Jesus in it, which is obviously, I think, so important. But when you are able to be in a room with other gals who just know exactly what it's like to feel that shame from feeling like you want to be drinking and not want to be drinking all at the same time and can't talk about it at anyone at church, something really, really special happens. And what's really, really cool about this community too is so many of the clients that I have coached that are now alcohol free have like stayed behind to pour into the other women that are coming up after them. So it's this really amazing place of gals at all kind of spots at their alcohol free journey, all encouraging each other. We have we pray for each faster by name. We had 500 for January, which is wild. Wow, 503. So we split up the list with our team, and we're like, everyone is taking a group of, I don't know how to do that math right now. I think there's like 30 right per gal or something, where we're praying for every single woman. And when we said that on the first call, like we're praying for you. We're praying for you by name, each and every one of you. I mean, the emotion that we got back of like, I never in a million years thought that anyone would pray for me about this. Right. It's just so special. It's so special. We're not meant to live life alone, and we're not meant to do this alone, I don't think. And we get to cheer each other on, and it's really, really, really special.
Tell me about, I know you have upcoming for the Lent season, and also you're going to be doing it again in September, this guided period of time, like the January fast that you did. Like, what does that look like? And how do people engage with that? I think it's such an interesting concept for people to start together in that way. Now, again, I think AA and all these different measures are fantastic, but you're going to have people at varying stages.
Yeah.
The idea that everybody's doing this together, starting here, it's just really interesting to me. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so we walk through my book, Love Life Sober. It's a 40-day alcohol fast. And we have, for example, for Lent, we've got me and 3 other coaches, and we have various calls throughout the week, and they're recorded. So if gals are working or can't make them live, they can watch the recordings. And then there's like daily prompts based on kind of that chapter in the book and that scripture in the book. And so every morning I put a prompt in the group. We meet on a platform off of all social media, so there's not that distraction, which is great.
Nice.
And gals are just commenting, cheering each other on. And it's really, really special because, again, like, it's not just me, it's a team, and I have other coaches in there too. And we all just love Jesus. And what we just keep saying over and over again is, this is not about sobriety, actually, which sounds upside down. And it's not about staying free from alcohol for 40 days. It's really about getting close to Jesus and going to him for all those reasons that you were going to the wine, right? Like the true vine, not the wine.
Not the wine. Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. Well, Christy, as always, these conversations, just your demeanor, your love for women, your transparency about your own journey, the continuing research that you do, you are just an absolute gem. Where can listeners go to learn more about your work, your passion for this, the groups that you have starting, all the stuff?
Yeah, everything is at lovelifesober.com. I'm at Love Life Sober with Christy on Instagram, but you can find everything on the website. And the book, Love Life Sober, is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everywhere. So it's pretty easy to find me.
Okay, awesome. I love it. Well, we'll get that in the show notes. Christy, thanks again for letting me take up part of your British evening, because that's the time it is over there as I'm in the middle of the workday. So thanks for letting us interrupt your evening.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, friends, you know what to do. You're going to go to those show notes. You're going to find where Rebecca has linked everything that Christy and I have been talking about today. And I want to hear back from you on this episode. Go over to Instagram. Julie Lyles Carr is where I usually hang out over there. And let me know what you thought about our conversation, places that you might need help, ways that we can help you get this link to someone who you know could really use it. And we want to be there for you in this journey. AllMomDoes on the socials, all the places. That's a great community where you're going to find women in the same seasons and stages of life that you're in. And a big thank you to the production team who puts all this together, the sound engineering and the promotion and getting the links all the places and uploading everything to all the podcast platforms. Man, this team is something else. So I just want to give them a big shout out. And I will see you next time on the AllMomDoes podcast.